Hey guys, this is Untitled the Heap. I run the diplomacy briefing, and I wanted to make a video today that focuses kind of on the diplomacy sets that I own. I've owned basically every major set, at least for the American publishers, and I just got a brand new one, and I thought this would maybe be a good video to talk about some of the differences between the sets, but also just be interesting too to talk about some of the history of diplomacy. Now, the set here before you is the one I just bought, and this set is from 1961. This was the first printing of diplomacy by a publisher. Now, previous to this, Alan Cowhammer, who actually then invented the game, he had made a printing of 500 sets himself. He had self-published it, but he moved the manufacturer of the diplomacy set to Game Research, and so in 1961 you had the first edition. And so this is a set that I've been wanting to get for a while, and I got a good deal on it. You can get a pretty good deal on a lot of different diplomacy sets just on eBay. That's where I got this one. I got it, I think, for $26 or $27. And when I got it, I was very, very impressed with the condition it was in for a game that, is 60 years old. So let's go ahead and let's open it up. You can see kind of the box. The boxing is almost, it's cardboard, but it has almost like a leather look to it, which I liked. The board is significantly bigger than I thought. I'll talk a little bit about the board game after this one, but I expected this map to be a little bit smaller, the board. It's about 2 feet by 18 inches when it's half. And so when you put the whole thing together, you've got a very, very good sized map, about 2 feet by 3.5 feet. This map here is really just, it's a regular map you could find in the store. And so Cowhammer took that, just put his different territory markers up, and then went with that. He didn't design his own map for this. And you can even see here it actually has kind of the topography of the area. I'm not a big fan of this map by itself. I think it's just a little messy. But he was designing a game. He wasn't trying to design a map. He was trying to get it out to publishers. So I definitely understand his thought process. But it's a good size map, a good to play on. I was very, very happy with the condition of the game itself. So first thing, the big reason I bought this is because I wanted to get the blocks. The other sets I have do not have blocks, though I bought some. You can't buy these rectangular blocks online. You have to make them yourself or buy an old game. And the reason why rectangular blocks are important is because when you're playing face-to-face, especially in a tournament setting, if someone does a support order, you do this to signify that it's a support. If you have square blocks, you can't do that. So the condition of this is excellent. Not only that, the plastic was still good, so I really like that. It looks like it's never been played before. And so I was very, very happy with that was the case. I also found it interesting that within this edition, they actually they had a play diplomacy by mail flyer. If you're familiar with diplomacy's history, it really got popular once people figured out that you could play this game by mail. So the problem that you've always had with diplomacy is that it's a long game, and to get 7 people to clear their schedule that would actually like the game is very difficult. And so the game really began to take off when people began to play by distance. And so back in the 60s, you didn't get on the internet. You had to play by mail. So you had to send letters, write letters. It was a very, very creative time in diplomacy's history. And so these sets began to come with a play diplomacy by mail flyer. And I find it very interesting because several of these zines that were made I've read several of them. You have ones like the Hoosier Archive, which is by Walter Buckman, who invented Diplomacy World. That's on here. You have the Arena by Eddie Brisson. There's several here that are just very noteworthy. And so the way that you would play by mail is you would write letters to the different powers, but then also you would send in your moves to the zine editor. And they would then adjudicate it and send out, a fan zine to everyone so that they could see the move sets. And so you can find these zines have been uploaded to an archive by Douglas Kent. If you go over to the Diplomacy World website, you'll eventually click through a few links and you'll find that. There's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of zines that have all been uploaded, lots of good information. But you could jump right into a game they have the addresses too. And by the way, most of these addresses, a lot of them were their actual home address. But anyway, you could get right into a game by writing them. You'd give them some money for the zine and then go to it. The one thing I was a little disappointed in, I was looking at the rule book, and there is nowhere on this entire game that says it was invented by Alan Cowhammer, which to me was a little disappointing. But it's a great addition. It's worth owning, and these blocks are actually bigger than the Avalon Hill edition. So in the mid-'70s, Avalon Hill got the copyright for Diplomacy, and originally they produced what was called bookcase games. And so they were smaller. It was a much smaller box, and usually, depending on the edition, it would be like a 3-fold board, and it was a little bit squarish too. And that was actually the first one I ever owned. Now the one I had bought was more in the 80s edition, and when you get to that point, they're actually doing plastic pieces. They'll have plastic stars and anchors and stuff like that. I owned that. That was my first Diplomacy game, but I sold it later. I'm not a fan of it. But the Avalon Hill edition had blocks, but they were actually smaller than this. So this particular edition was printed by Game and Research up into the mid-'70s. In the mid-'70s, Avalon Hill got the copyright and for the next 10 years produced the bookcase games. Now, again, these games that I'm showing you are all American-based. There are other editions that are in England and Australia and France, some different countries like that. This is just kind of the American line. And they also tend to be the ones that are the most available. The Avalon Hill bookcase games are the ones that if you go to eBay, those are always going to be up there to get. Again, if you're going to invest, I just encourage you to get the block set. It's better, it's cleaner, they're easier to kind of see. When you're playing, they're easier to see the provinces where they're at. When it comes to playing with pieces, I much, much prefer the blocks. And they're the only thing that'll be used in tournaments also. So I was very happy with this. Let me move on. I told you the Avalon Hill was kind of like the second different publisher that was doing it. In 1999, another set came out. Hasbro bought out Avalon Hill, and they produced this set. This happens to be the set that a lot of people, especially online, talk a lot about how great it is. I'm not a big fan of this set. The reason why people like this set or at least think that it's such a great set, is that they have metal pieces. I'll say this, I think a lot of people get excited about this because they don't really own a Diplomacy board set, and they've never really played it live. This set, it's basically using like Monopoly pieces almost for Diplomacy. And I'm going to show you why I'm not a big fan of this set, even though a lot of people like it. So let me go ahead and pull some of this out. You can see in here I've got lots of order writing books that you can do. I'll pull out a few of these sets so you can kind of get an idea of it. All right. The biggest reason I'm not a fan of this set is the board. This is by far the worst board for a Diplomacy set, in my opinion. First of all, you've got in the middle, everything's scrunched in. It's ugly. Whoever put this board together, I don't feel like they sat down and actually played a game of Diplomacy. Now let's go over to the metal pieces because that's what people get so excited about. All right, we'll go ahead and let's set up Turkey, and I'll set up Austria. So the first thing that you notice is that you can't show supports, right? Like you can with the wooden blocks. But also, the other reason I don't like them is because they take up space in a bigger way than the blocks do. And so you've got all these cannons sticking up. They're higher than the actual blocks, and so and then these are thinner too. It's just to me, it's always just kind of seemed a little bit messy. I understand some people like the metallic pieces because I guess they think metal is automatically better. But I mean, to each their own. I've just never liked it, and I think it's hard to argue though at all that this isn't the worst map produced. Not a fan. Don't like it. These are actually pretty expensive a lot of times on eBay, but I think I got this probably about 10 years ago. I think I got it for like $25 or $20. It was I just happened to come in at just the right time and was able to kind of snatch it. So, okay. Now I told you I originally owned the Avalon Hill Set. Well, I sold it. I was in college at the time. I sold it pretty much right after I bought it because they came out with the 50th edition, and it looked like just such a great game. I really do like this set, except for the pieces. This 50th edition has produced the nicest board by far. So let me go ahead and pull this out and let you take a look at it. It is in my opinion the nicest board, and it looks like a game board. Whereas the early editions were basically just, hey, let me plop some lines down on a map. This is an actual game board designed for diplomacy. It looks nice. It's easy to read. It's just really a very beautiful board. It looks like something that's fun to play on. And the one issue, and I understand that people don't like, is they do not like the cardboard pieces. And I agree. When you compare them to actual pieces to put on the board, they're definitely not as nice. But it's not the worst thing in the world, and you can always get more pieces from buy some blocks. In fact, that's what I did. I actually just for the board set, I bought some blocks that you can get at any tabletop web store. They don't show, you can't show the supports, right? Because they're square. I couldn't find rectangular blocks to buy, at least for a cheap price anywhere. So they don't show that, but they do the job, and they look better there on the board. So I really like that. While I am mentioning that, I'd like to take a little moment on how you do draws. The way most people do draws in face-to-face is they will take, basically they'll take a fleet and an army, and who's ever the game master will hold a box up, and if you want a draw, you'll vote yes with I think an army, and then no with a fleet, something like that. The problem is that it can be easy to kind of sometimes see what people vote. This I think is better. I actually bought this from a guy in Chicago, but you can make stuff like this, easily. But having cards I think is a better way so that the draws really are anonymous. So I encourage people that are running tournaments, get something like that. That's very helpful. All right. Definitely the best map. I saved one thing for last. This is something I made that I'm pretty proud of. I like it a lot. I made this probably about 10 years ago, and it's been great for playing face-to-face. So what I did was I took one of the maps from the 50th edition. I bought a marker board, and I put the map inside. And then I got magnets, and I chopped them up, into fleet and army sizes, and then I spray painted them the different colors, except I used purple for France because that was the one I had. But I usually will load up along the edges extra pieces, and then in a face-to-face game, when I walk away from the board, I can talk about making movements to different places. And it has been very helpful for me because I'm a very visual person. I think it's maybe even helped me have some alliances too, because people, it's easy to talk about the game. I mean, you can always just take pictures too, but this has always been very helpful for me to visualize things. It's really easy to make. Like I said, just buy a marker board, use one of the maps, and just chop up some pieces and spray paint them. Super easy and great for face-to-face. So those are the 3 boards I own. Like I said, the Avalon Hill Bookcase Edition is the one that most people have, but it's a good one to have. But I think the best pieces are going to be from the first edition, and then also from the map, at least when it comes to the map, from the 50th edition. Okay, thanks so much, guys.